Okay, so we've pretty much done our cherry blossom, and what we need to move on to is our ground below the trees. So just make a note of that. Okay, I'm going to use this very simple selection. We're using the polygon lasso tool, and we're just going to grab a selection around the area of the trees. This is like where people would walk around, and there tends not to be a lot of undergrowth because obviously the trees are blocking the light. So we'll just put that ground in like so, and I'm just going to feather the edge a little bit to soften the division between the grass and the ground. So now we'll just get a basic be a fairly dark brown, won't it? There we go. A bit darker than the trees. All the trees are pretty much the same actually. I'm just thinking of the areas of cherry blossom that I've looked at. Okay, get the brush, get a nice soft round brush, fairly large, and we'll have opacity at 80, float 80, build up airbrush effect, and just put that in. We do need to move it underneath the trees, of course. We'll do that later. Okay, so that's our basic ground layer. So Command D or Control D to, depending on which machine you're on, and we'll drag the ground underneath the tree group. Okay, so on the ground we're going to draw a path going through it. So we'll need to take a slightly lighter brown brush, and a smaller brush. That should do it. This time we want to put the flow way down, because we're going to put draw some distance in here, so we'll need to go over it several times, and let's just use the bracket key to open that up a little bit. And now you want to draw from the middle distance, not right from the end, so that the lighter it gets as it approaches the foreground. Now you want to paint in the foreground where it is the lightest. It's a bit straight. We need to randomize the edges a little bit. There we go. Okay, so that's our very basic ground. Got the ground in, so now what we want to do is to work on the grass. So just above the ground layer, you want to put the grass layer, and we're going to use another special brush in the same way that we used the cherry brush, and it's called Dune. I think there we are. Dune grass. Okay, so dune grass, and you won't see the size of the cursor until you actually start using it. For this, we can probably put our flow and opacity up to 50/50. And for the color this time, we're going to use a specialized color, in that sometimes you'll get instructions from whoever's handling the printing of this product. They'll probably use a special color occasionally to either use a spot color or to use a color that they know prints really well. So as an example, I'm just going to look for my notes. So our first one is a sort of pale yellow, which is 230 red, and 235 green, and 171 blue. Okay, and you might also want to make a record of this. So just drag the swatches out and just drop the just click on the swatches there, and you can put in pale yellow so that when you need to get back to it, it's already there. This library thing keeps popping up. I should get this. Okay, let's close that. Okay, so this is our pale yellow, and we're going to use that first of all to. We'll probably have to put this below the layers. Anyway, we can rearrange the layers as we need later on. So just go over all of the grass area. Be careful not to overlap the soil too much, although you will need to sort of hide that edge eventually. Okay. As you can see, this is a sort of building up process. Okay, so that's a bit of starting work for the pale yellow. Now we're going to make another specialized color, and this is going to be a kind of olive green. So you want to go into that the red box and put in 186, and in the green box with 196, and the blue box with 93. This is also a way of you could test print some of these colours and see which ones come out best. Pull up olive green, and let's go over our painting again. Okay, so we've got a basic underlay going on here. Okay, now to give us some distance, I'm going to use the bracket key to give us a much bigger brush at the foreground there, like that. And now I'm going to bracket down so we go into the middle distance. And down again. Again, the most distant grass. And we need to go back up again in size for the grass nearest the soil. We'll probably do an airbrush layer just to sort of clean those edges up. Okay, I'm going to switch back to the pale yellow. Go over it again. A lot of the painting process is this kind of gradually building up layers of colour. Okay. Now the next thing we need to do on top of the grass is to paint, but with a different blend mode. We're going to paint with the multiply mode, and this should give us a nice darkening and thickening of the grass. As one layer multiplies against the next, the value of the pixels goes up and makes a darker edge to it. That gives us another kind of dark verge there. And we will need to use an airbrush layer below this to sort of darken up those edges next to the soil. So that's our first of our grass there. Let's put these away for the moment. And let's look about layers. Okay, so what we'll do is just underneath our grass, we'll put an airbrush there. And let's get our brush, and with a soft round brush, and we'll go with very low opacity and flow so that we don't overdo it. And we need a slightly darker green for this, grey green actually. There we go. Just in case you're wondering, the this colour box here works with the top right being the hue, the maximum 100% of the colour that you're using. The bottom is black, bottom right is black, the bottom, top left is white. And essentially you're adding, you're getting tints of the colour as you move towards the white, and you're getting tones of the colour as you move towards the black. And obviously moving down the middle means you'll get grey versions of the colour. So actually we're going to go for a grey green. It's going to be underneath our grass there. And that's going to take forever to do, so let's give us a bit more opacity and flow. You don't want too much underneath the cherry blossom, just enough really to blend in the grass and the soil layer. There we go, gives it a bit more body. Just opening up the sides of the brush with the brackets keys. Okay, that should do it. Now that we've done the basic background, we're going to do the foreground figure. And for that, you'll need to get a hold of this image again. By the time this video is up, there should be a link below the video that takes you to these photos. Okay, so what we're going to do is we'll take the whole of the figure. We probably only use the upper half, but we'll take the whole of the figure just in case we want to change things around a little bit. I'm going to use the polygon tool to select out the figure. We don't really need to have super accuracy in this case. Whoops, a daisy. So I might just speed through this. In the image that we're working on, we will actually use a filter for the figure, for the body of the figure, and so we won't really need to have a super close selection, although we do need to make sure that there's not a lot of green on the edge. We're actually going to be selecting out the brolly or umbrella parasol, so we're not actually going to use much, if any, of the photo itself. We're just using it as a guide for our illustration, in much the same way that we used the trees previously to basically draw trees. Oops, come the wrong way. Okay, I'm not going to bother being too careful with this because we're just using it for this demo. So again, if you were actually making an illustration, you might take a bit more care, a bit more time. You probably use a mask mode to paint in a better selector, but for now this will do. Okay, I just give it a little bit of feathering to clean up the edges. Not much, just give it 2 pixels. And copy. Oops, edit and copy. And edit and paste. Oops. Yeah, and it will paste in the layer which just is above the layer that you was last working on. So, just to sort of remind you of that. Drag it up to the top. Right, so let's get the move tool. Switch off transforms if you're not going to use them, because they'll just mess up. Okay, so that is roughly we're going to place make it a bit bigger, couldn't we? Let's do that. Yes, just make her a bit bigger. There we go. For the purposes of our tutorial, it might be useful if the figure's a bit bigger. And we'll just put it there in the corner, looking at the cherry trees. And just Control S or Command S if you're on the Mac to save your file at that time. Alright, so now we need to select out the brolly, and also to select the sections of the brolly, so that we can first of all put a background paint layer in, and then we'll need these sections of the brolly to do our additional paint work. Okay, so let's just go and select the edges of the brolly. I should have zoomed in a little bit closer than this. Mind. Again, there is a better way to get these sorts of big curving shapes, and that's Bezier curves, which we'll do in a future project. So for now, we'll just use this method of selection here with the polygon tool. We can always clean up the alpha channel if we need to make it a bit neater. But for our purposes of demonstration, we don't really need to fuss that much. Okay, as I said before, this is a sort of right brain activity, so I'm afraid my speech centers shut down once I start operating in that mode. Okay, so there's our selection, and you want to go into channels, because what we're going to do is change the selection into an alpha channel by clicking on that little flag there. And so this is our alpha channel. If it shows in reverse, then you'll need to fix it. Let me show you what I mean. Okay, this is the quick mask mode, and it should be this way around, which is to say red outside and the image inside. If you double click on the quick mask, if you double click on this, somebody might have set that up in the machines if you're working in an institutional sort of place like my students are. So you might need to change that around. But if it's showing the opposite way around, it's because this has been set to selected areas. It needs to be masked areas to maintain the same sort of paradigm. Okay, so we've got our first alpha channel, and whoops, and that's fine. And we can use Command D or Control D if you're on a PC. Now what we want to do is to select each of the segments. Now there will be a little bit of overlap because of the method of selection we're using, i.e. the polygon tool, but it's not critical for this level of illustration that we're doing. If we was doing this professionally, we'd be using Bezier curves anyway. but we've not got to that stage, so we'll just have to make do with the polygon tool for now. Okay, and it kind of dips inwards there, and then goes down again along that ridge, because we want to be able to selectively paint into each of these panels. I'll put some music on in the background. Right, so let's go back to channels, selection to alpha channel, and we may as well give these things names. All parasol, and we'll call this segment 1. Terribly creative, there you go. Hello. Okay, back to our, whoops. If you're not seeing the image, make sure that you've clicked on the RGB composite of the channel, or you'll get to see weird stuff like this. Yeah. So if you're seeing weird stuff like that, make sure the RGB composite is selected. Okay, and Command D or Control D to deselect, and we'll move on to our next panel. They might need to do a little bit of cleanup between the panels, because they probably won't match up absolutely, but that's okay for now. Okay, back to channels, back to alpha channel rather, and we'll go to segment 2. Channel RGB composite, back to layers, and Command D or Control D, and go on to segment 3. A lot of tutorials might give you these files all set up nice and neat, but I try and keep my tutorials as realistic as possible, so I've left these things in. Okay, and go to alpha channel 3. RGB composite, Command D, Control D to deselect, and you want to move on to the next panel, which follows this rib, which is a bit crooked at the bottom there. I was thinking of putting some music in the background, but a lot of people are probably playing their own music in the background, so I don't know what to do there. Okay, and it's going to be segment 4. And Control D, Command D, and I'll go on to segment 5. There's 3 short segments at the back. 2 more short segments at the back, I think. Okay, channel alpha 5. Control D or Command D. Segment 6. And it meets the first segment about there. Okay, we've got all the bits that we need. Alright, so let's Control D out of that. Okay, now we need to start painting it. So first of all, what we'll do is the underpainting of the brolly, parasol. So let's later in the day, sort of thing, what we'll probably do is scoop these up into groups so that we can sort of tidy up the channels a bit. Okay, so I'm going to paint the parasol base white. If your colours what you need to do is just reset the colours by clicking on this one and bring the white or black forward there. So we're going to have white because we're going to paint in a white background for our parasol. Sometimes it's a good idea to paint in a white background before you put paint on top, as it allows you to control the colour and you can be a bit more certain as to what the colour is going to be when you print it. Okay, so let's load selection. So select load selection, and we want to go to all parasol, and that's that there. Make sure you get the paint bucket selected, white selected, and your new the layer that you've made for this particular purpose, and just paint it in. And Command D to deselect. Now we want to want another one called underpainting, and this is we're gonna paint in this grayscale to give the parasol some texture, and we're gonna use just one layer for that. Okay, so let's go and get our first segment. Segment 1, okay, and we'll switch to black and brush. Not multiply, just make sure that you've changed that back. Again, for my students in institutions, these settings at the top could be changed by the previous person, so you'll need to check that they are what you want. Okay, I'm going to take the opacity down and the flow down, leave the airbrush build-up effect on, and that's still a bit too much. Okay, because you want to do it very lightly, so about 10%. And use your bracket keys to make your brush a little bit smaller, because you just want the edges of the brolly, or parasol, whatever it is, you just want the edges to have a little bit of depth. Okay, once you've done with that, you can Control D, Command D, and we can go and select our next segment, and the same thing. And again, just use your bracket keys to reduce the size. Don't worry about these non-painted bits for now. We can sort of fix all that a bit later on. Okay, and D. Let's go and get our next segment. So it's really just to sort of give a little bit of shape to it, a bit more than without using the photographic image. Control D or Command D, and go on to our next segment. So don't worry too much about the bits that are missing. Okay, next segment. Okay, segment 6. That's our basic underlay. Okay, so the underpainting, just make sure we've got this thing on. There we go. We're going to make a new group. We'll call it parasol, and start putting our layers into that. And just get in the right order. The underpainting, we don't want it to be that opaque. Okay, maybe yay big. We're going to do painting over the top, so once we've done that we can figure out just which of these are going to be a problem. And new layer, and this is going to be light blue. So we're going to make it look like it's been rained upon. So it's one of those spring showers or something. So I'm going to make some special colours for it. If I can make some room here. I'll need to check my notes. Okay, so in the swatches, the colours actually, the swatches we've got the colour we need to select these particular RGB colours. So our first one is going to be medium blue, which is 150. 50 red, and then 143 green, and then whoops, sorry, wrong one, 193, and then this is going to be 219, and that's going to be our first one. I'm going to again drag the swatches off because we're going to make up these special colours, and then just click in there, and we can call this medium blue, and we'll just use this for now. We want to use a special brush. Oh, gosh, this libraries thing, just keep going. Actually, let's just put it down there so we've got it. Okay, so we want a special brush. Let's pop that back in there. Close it. Get our brushes palette and brush presets, and we're looking for wet media brush. Right, we might have to import them. Okay, so if you don't have wet media brush, just go down to the presets here and append, which means to add on. Okay. There we are, watercolor light opacity, fantastic. Okay, so once you've got the watercolor light opacity, what we can then do is, we've already got the medium blue selected, we can go and select our first segment. So let's go to segment 1. Okay, we've got fairly low opacity, let's go about 30-30 there. And we need a slightly bigger brush. And we'll probably have to get rid of that underpainting to a certain degree, it's a bit too dark. Okay, so it's going to be an uneven blue to suggest a kind of wet fabric. There we go. And I'm going to go to underpainting for a second and turn down its opacity. There we are. And then back to the light blue layer. And okay, I'm going to switch to the dark blue color. So let's just go and make that if we haven't done it already. No, we haven't. So let's find a darker blue, because it's otherwise we're going to be selecting them twice. So it's 132 for red, 143 for blue, green, sorry, and 199 for blue. Okay, so that's the settings for our darker blue. Let's go into swatches again. Just drop that in, and we'll call this dark blue. And so now we can switch between them as we add different sort of detail. So I just clicked. If you go inside that blue area, it'll be a paint dropper. So it'll pick up the color. So now it's picked up the color, we can go actually. We want to have a different layer for that, so that we've got the ability to change things. So in the parasol group, just make a dark blue layer and switch to that, and then you can sort of paint in again along the edges. Let's increase this size a bit and just make it a little bit more patchy, so it'll begin to look like it's a sort of wet area. Okay, back to light blue, and Control D to deselect, or Command D if you're on a Mac. Load selection, and let's move on to the second segment. And with our light blue color on our light blue layer, we need to reselect our light blue color. We can sort of make a general wet blue sort of scenario there. As I say, make sure it's kind of uneven because it's supposed to look wet. Once you've done that, go on to select your light blue color and your dark blue color and the dark blue layer, and again go over it closer to the support, and again you can just sort of single clicks and it will give you that patchy look. And again Control D to deselect, and we want to go to the next segment and switch back to your light blue color, light blue layer. Just rough in the kind of so keeping the mouse stationary and just clicking once or a few times can give you a nice patchy sort of look. And go into your dark blue color, dark blue layer, and lay in a bit more modeling of the brolly. And again, a few patchy bits for making it look wet. Okay, and Command D to deselect. Go to the selection 4 and switch to light blue color. I think we'll get rid of the underpainting because it looks a bit too dark. Okay, switch to the dark blue layer, and for these areas you probably only need to spot it in. Okay. Deselect. Okay, I'm going to do some patching, I think. Just drag that under the underpainting. Okay. Alright, I'm just going to do a bit of patching. Put this underneath our blue paint, just to sort of get rid of the worst of our misses. Okay. As I say, we would have selected this out with the Bezier curve, which will be in our next project. But for now, we just have to sort of rough it in. Okay, and go back to our light blue. Select that selection. Go to 5. And let's get our light blue paint. And dark blue layer. And Command D. And load selection 6. And get the light blue color. A bit more patchiness. Select dark blue layer. There we go. Control D. Okay, under painting, I'm going to take right down. There we go. Okay, so okay, I'm just going to fix this some of our patches here. So I've renamed our fixing layer patches, and I'm just going to get the brush and very gently. Oops. We want to select load selection all parasol, because it's just the edges that we want to clean up now. And I'm using the dark blue. So if we'd used Bezier curves, we could have gotten away with this without the need to patch. But as we've not covered those yet, we can't really use them. Okay, let's get rid of the worst of it. By the way, you can hold the space bar down if you didn't know this already, and move the image around. It'll be quite handy for times like this. Okay, so we could fuss about for ages, and with that. I also need to put the character into the layer and drag it down to the bottom below the parasol. Because the other thing we need to do is to filter the character. So let's go to filter and filter gallery. Whoops, wrong way around. Sorry, we need to select filter. Select and inverse, because what we need to do is to change the character into a sort of painterly filter so that she fits in with the rest of the picture. Okay, let's see. again, this is another thing that can take up a lot of time. Okay, I think we'll go for underpainting and texture coverage. Okay, don't want too much relief because our image is essentially flat. Anyway, you can sort of try several different versions of these things and see what works best for you. I'm just going to accept that. So that will do for now, because we're running out of time. Slightly deselect, and that's most of it done. Okay, to finish up then, and a little project for yourselves to do. What you could do is go to one of the other photos that I've given you, or you could have gone. These photos will be attached to a web page on a link in the blurb below. So just go to that web page and drag and drop them onto your desktop, and you can use them. Right, anyway, so what you can do for another brush is to first of all get a sample of the ground with cherry blossom on it. Then you can use the magic wand to select, some of the petals, not all of them, because you don't need this kind of density. Once you've selected them, you can go and edit define brush preset, and then in the same way that we did these cherry blossoms, you can change the brush dynamics and do that yourselves this time. We're going to have the last layer here, which is going to be glowing blossom, and let's see, I need to get a brush. This is the brush that I made from that scattered cherry blossom, so it's really just a scattering of things. And you'll need to choose pink, obviously, fairly light pink. Choose almost 100% because you want them to be fairly bright, and then just click and drag to suggest, or just click and spatter to suggest it's kind of falling off. It's a bit too dense actually, this is, but you get the idea. Okay, so that's it for our for this project. Just Control D to save. Oops, sorry, Control S, I beg your pardon, to save the file, or Command S if you're on a Mac. And I hope you've liked following it along. I know it's a bit of a long one, this, but sometimes Photoshop does take quite a long time. Anyway, if you've liked the tutorial, please leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Okay, bye for now.